So just yesterday on May 29th, 2020, Sony announced that we're going to get a first look at the future of gaming on PlayStation 5 with an event set for June 4th, 2020 at 1 p.m. Pacific, where they're going to show off a lot of games and actual gameplay footage of games running on PlayStation 5 proper. Now, after the announcement right here, various members of the PlayStation group took to various news outlets to share their insight on what we can expect for the future of PlayStation 5, and among the topics that was brought up was, plans for PlayStation 5's launch and how that's going, as well as what their plans are for games and the way they're going to release them, whether we're going to see a cross-gen thing or if it's going to focus more on PlayStation 5 and kind of exclusive to next-gen. Well, that is a question that is answered in this interview. So here is a quote that was highlighted by Games Industry. It reads right here, "One way to keep PS4 users engaged would be to make upcoming PS5 games playable on the older machine, just like Microsoft is proposing with its Xbox Series X games being playable on Xbox One. Yet Ryan says that's not something PlayStation is interested in doing." His exact quote reads, "We have always said that we believe in generations. We believe that when you go to all the trouble of creating a next-gen console, that it should include features and benefits that the previous generation does not include, and that in our view, people should make games that can make the most of those features. We do believe in generations, and whether it's the DualSense controller, whether it's the 3D audio, whether it's the multiple ways that the SSD can be used, we're thinking that it is time to give the PlayStation community something new, something different, that can really only be enjoyed on PS5. So he is basically saying that in order to take full advantage of PlayStation 5's new architecture, its hardware capabilities, and overall prowess and the various features that will come with the console, they want to develop games that are only for PS5 so that they don't have to consider the limitations of also having to make that game work on PlayStation 4, which is a console that does not have the SSD and all of these different things that apparently changed the paradigm of how game developers can design their games, and without such imposed limitations, at the very least, first-party Sony titles can really focus on utilizing PS5 to its fullest extent. Now, as far as third-party games go, no doubt that we're going to see a lot of cross-gen games for at the very least the first year of PS5's launch, and then once PS5 sales begin to pick up pace, once the exclusives, the first-party titles start pushing more consoles and units, developers can feel more confident in just developing their games for PS5. Keep in mind that PS4 has an audience base of over 100 million, and a lot of developers surely don't want to miss out on selling their game to both the 100 million PS4 users as well as the growing PS5 user base that will take years to build. So that makes sense, but from a first-party perspective, yeah, if they want to push PS5s, they have to make games that are unique to that console and that take full advantage of it, and that can only be experienced on PS5 because of its unique hardware capabilities. And this is a very different take compared to what Microsoft is doing with Xbox and Xbox Series X. So it reads right here, this is a quote from Matt Booty via an MCV interview, and this is relayed also by Games Industry. The quote reads, "As our content comes out over the next year, 2 years, all of our games, sort of like PC, will play up and down that family of devices. We want to make sure that if someone invests in Xbox between now and Series X, that they feel that they made a good investment and that we're committed to them with content." So unlike Sony, who are developing PS5 exclusive first-party titles from the outset, Xbox is planning to make that transition a bit smoother. So for the first 2 years, we'll probably see a lot of their first-party releases like Halo Infinite and other IPs release on both Xbox One and Xbox Series X. And the advantage there, on one hand, is that players who do not want to upgrade to next-gen or can't afford to upgrade to next-gen until down the line, they are able to enjoy these new experiences and take advantage of, things like smart delivery to do a free upgrade from last gen to next gen, or they're able to take advantage of Game Pass and just, pay a low monthly fee and still play that game on Xbox One if they don't have the money to spend on upgrading to Series X, or if they feel like they want to wait and see how that console develops before pulling the trigger on it. So there's a lot of consumer-friendly advantages there, but at the same time, there is concern that with Xbox One, the original in particular, being so weak, especially by modern-day standards, given that it was kind of weaker than PS4 and there were some performance issues, even, at the outset of this current generation, there are concerns that maybe Microsoft and their first-party games will be limited in terms of scope and unique capabilities because they have to adapt to Xbox One's weaker hardware, which means that they cannot implement certain features because that gameplay element might not be able to run on the older hardware. PS5 is not going to have that problem as far as first-party titles go because they're just flat out making PS5 games, and there's the advantage of, being able to look forward to something that is really just expansive. One of the things that's emphasized with the SSD is that open worlds no longer have to be designed like a maze, and a lot of the issues when it comes to loading in assets and the like, all of that's taken care of with PS5's ridiculously fast SSD, and so open worlds can be more open than ever on a level that just hasn't been able to be achieved before. But at the outset of next gen, it's going to be two very different strategies, with Microsoft focusing on subscription and ensuring that Game Pass is pushed forth and that they unify the entire family of Xbox and Windows software and hardware, that all of that is kind of universal across the board, where Sony is going for a more traditional take on next gen, where next gen is next gen. There's a clear delineation. But at the end of the day, if the games are good, then the technology is kind of secondary. If they have good design principles, a good concept for a video game, and if they execute it well, I will take whatever console. We can scrutinize all the teraflops and whatever, but at the end of the day, these are both very capable consoles, with each company going for very different strategies. And that's okay, as long as the games are good, the games keep rolling out, as long as these are good experiences that are worth the price point without sort of insidious monetization elements. As long as you give us the games, that's ultimately what's going to sell consoles. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, one last thing I'd like to note before I close off the video is Sony talking about the current state of PlayStation 5's production when asked by Games Industry whether PS5 is going to be delayed. Here's how Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan responded to that. The relevant portion down here reads, "We are obviously principally occupied with getting ready for PS5. I think most businesses would find themselves challenged with the working from home environment, and I do think the way that the various groups within PlayStation have responded has been magnificent. There are the hardware engineers who are having to work without being able to get into China, where PS5 will be assembled. That's kind of tough. The software engineers who are building these great features, who are building a great PS5 UI, some of that can be readily done in isolation, but when it comes to putting it all together, that's not easy to do remotely, and they're doing a great job. And finally, the people who make games, we and our partners, seem to be coping really well, and so we're on track. We're going to launch this holiday, and we're going to launch globally. We're really looking forward to it, and it's going to be a blast." A lot of people are concerned that, Sony, while they keep insisting a holiday 2020 release, that it might get delayed down the line, eventually when plans shift, but Sony is still resolute on launching this console during holiday 2020 alongside a handful of games, and while they do describe and highlight that there are hardships to overcome with the remote work environment, it does ultimately seem as though they're working at a good enough capacity where they're able to deliver. But yeah, as far as PS5 goes, Sony's strategy is to just focus on maximizing that PS5 hardware without having PS4 holding them back in any way. Here's hoping that they'll have something impressive come PS5 launch. With a lot of these consoles, the launch titles are always an issue. If PS5 can have a killer app from the outset that was in fact specifically designed for PS5 and that will really blow us away and kind of open our eyes to why this solid-state drive thing is such a big deal, then I say that'll be a big success. But it's still an if, jury's still out. But in the meantime, let me know in the comments below what your take is on all of this, what you hope to see during the upcoming PS5 event, and whether you like the strategy of PS5 games that are solely designed for PS5 with no PS4 version that requires additional limitations and considerations, or whether you like Xbox Series X's strategy of, for the first 2 years, keeping things cross-gen so that there's a smoother transition in conjunction with features like Smart Delivery and Xbox Game Pass. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.